Imagine a religion not created by a prophet or saint, but by a science fiction writer who dreamed of millions and ended up with an empire of influence. Scientology isn't just another weird belief system. It's a cult that sunk its claws deep into the heart of Hollywood, ensnared global stars, and learned to play by the rules of big-time showbiz. On the outside, shiny buildings with gold-plated signs, smiling faces, promises of enlightenment and self-improvement. On the inside, hierarchy, control, total submission to a system where every step, thought, and emotion can be used against you. This isn't a religion in the traditional sense. It's a mind game wrapped in a futuristic package. Scientology pulled off what most cults never could. It became elite. Being part of it means you're chosen, special. It's no coincidence that among its followers are top actors, directors, and producers. Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Elizabeth Moss, just the tip of the iceberg. This is a story about belief sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, about spirituality built like a script, about an organization that understood better than anyone else how a cult works in the age of fame, cameras, and cash flow. Lafayette Ronald Hubbard, the man who turned science fiction into religion. Before creating Scientology, he was an insanely prolific pulp fiction writer. Adventures, space wars, expeditions to parallel worlds. He wrote fast, a lot, and with no real limits. His imagination was bottomless, and his style read like a Hollywood blockbuster on paper. But Hubbard wanted more than print runs. In the 1940s, he started playing around with the idea of scientific mental therapy. It all began with the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, 1950, which described a method of clearing the mind of negative experiences. The core idea was that all our problems come from so-called engrams, harmful memories hiding in the subconscious. These could be erased through special sessions that resembled therapy, but had nothing to do with actual science. The book became a bestseller, but mainstream scientists quickly tore it to shreds. Hubbard's methods were branded pseudoscientific, so he pivoted. If his therapy didn't pass as science, he'd market it as religion. And that's how, in 1954, the Church of Scientology was born. From that moment, Hubbard wasn't just a science fiction author. He became the founder of spiritual technology, author of thousands of pages of religious texts, and prophet to tens of thousands of followers. He wrote the canon himself, set the rules, and created a system where every spiritual upgrade could be bought, level by level, like DLCs for your soul. Funny thing, Hubbard never really hid his pragmatism. According to his colleagues, before starting Scientology, he often said, "If you want to make $1 million, start a religion." And he did, and made a lot more than that. Scientology markets itself as a science of the soul, but really, it's a complex mix of sci-fi mythology, pseudopsychology, and tightly structured belief that expertly disguises itself as personal growth. Its teachings aren't just a set of symbols or parables, but a full-on system you progress through, level by level, paying for each new truth. At the core of the belief is the concept of the thetan. That's an immortal spiritual being that lives inside every person. The thetan isn't you. It's the real you. It existed long before your birth and gathered experience for millions of years, in many bodies, on many planets. The human body is just a temporary container. At the beginning of the universe, thetans were all-powerful beings. But due to a cosmic tragedy, they forgot who they were. And the main event behind this, according to Scientology's canon, is called Incident 2. In secret training materials, accessible only after tens of thousands of dollars, Scientology reveals the real origin of human suffering. A galactic ruler named Xenu governed an interstellar civilization that had a massive overpopulation problem. To fix it, he gathered billions of souls, froze them, brought them to the planet Tigiak, modern-day Earth, dropped them into volcanoes, and blew them up with hydrogen bombs. The result? These souls, thetans, scattered and latched onto human bodies. According to Scientologists, this is the source of psychological pain, fear, anxiety, depression, engrams. To get rid of engrams and free the thetan, one must undergo auditing, an intense spiritual cleansing session. The person sits across from an auditor, a Scientology priest, holding metal cans connected to a device called an e-meter, electropsychometer. The auditor asks a series of questions while the device tracks reaction fluctuations. It's like a lie detector mixed with a therapy session, but it's pitched as the path to liberation. People are made to recall painful moments from the past, including past lives, even those that took place on other planets. Scientology has a detailed system of spiritual levels, like a role-playing game. The starting point is an average person with traumas and blocks. The next goal is to become a clear, a state where the person is supposedly free of engrams and no longer affected by fear, illness, or negative emotion. But clear is just the beginning. Next comes a series of levels called operating thetan OT. The higher the OT level, the more superhuman abilities you supposedly unlock. Telekinesis, healing, full control over matter, even mind control. Each level comes at a price. The full path to the highest level, OT8, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. What makes Scientology even more dangerous is that it rarely sounds mystical. Its terms are more like tech jargon: mental blocks, spiritual protocols, reactive mind discharge. The church avoids the word faith and instead says technology. This creates the illusion that it's not religion, but a method of self-improvement. And that's why Scientology so easily lures in actors, entrepreneurs, artists, people who want to unlock their full potential and are willing to pay for the key to superhuman powers. But that key isn't free, and not everyone who uses it comes out whole. This is a multi-level, ultra-disciplined, meticulously built organization that runs like a corporation with military hierarchy, a global network of branches, and strict control over every member. All Scientologists go through a spiritual upgrade scale made up of dozens of levels. It starts with a newbie doing basic courses and learning how to think rationally and eliminate negative emotions. Then comes the path to clear. But the real summit is the OT, operating thetan, levels, where the person is supposed to regain control over life, reality, matter, space, and time. The hierarchy isn't just spiritual, it's financial. The higher you go, the more expensive the next level gets. Some courses cost tens of thousands of dollars, and the full path can exceed $500,000. At the top sits Sea Organization, Sea Org, an inner order with iron discipline, a billion-year pledge of loyalty, and a strict military lifestyle. Members wear naval uniforms, live in shared quarters, work 12 to 16-hour days, and fully obey the leadership. They're the church's army, spreading doctrine worldwide. They train, punish, recruit, monitor. Many lack ID, healthcare, or personal freedom. Leaving Sea Org is nearly impossible without serious consequences. Scientology has hundreds of branches in dozens of countries. They're called organizations, missions, ideal churches, official buildings, often luxurious, in elite parts of New York, London, Copenhagen, Tokyo, Berlin, and more. Key centers include Flag Service Organization in Florida, the main spiritual training HQ, Celebrity Center in Los Angeles, a specialized complex for stars and VIPs, Hubbard Hall in California, the central control hub. Each center has a strict chain of command: president, admin officer, ethics inspector, finance coordinator. They report to higher bodies which report directly to church leader David Miscavige. The church operates a strict monitoring system. Reports on bad behavior. Anyone can snitch on another Scientologist. Ethics inspectors. Like party commissars, they run internal investigations. Punishment programs. If you doubt or have dangerous thoughts, you're sent for re-education. The church has compiled vast personal databases. What you said during auditing is recorded. Everything is stored. And according to former members, can be used against you if you try to leave or speak out publicly. In this system, nothing is accidental. Every believer is at once a client, a subordinate, and an enforcer. And the higher you rise, the more control you gain over those below you. From the start, Scientology built its empire not on belief in higher powers, but in the power of influence. actors, musicians, directors. To the church, they're not just parishioners, but walking billboards. And Hollywood became the perfect stage for this strategy. In the center of LA, Scientologists opened a special branch, the Celebrity Center. This place isn't for average churchgoers. It serves celebrities, private courses, VIP auditors, luxurious settings, and full confidentiality. The goal is simple: win over the people the whole world watches. Faith becomes prestige, enlightenment becomes an exclusive experience. Scientologists knew stars are magnets. If Tom Cruise says auditing changed his life, millions will believe him. If John Travolta thanks Scientology for healing his soul, this isn't just religion anymore, it's a lifestyle to aspire to. He's not just a follower, he's an apostle, a flag, a live missionary. In the 2000s, he gave passionate public speeches defending the church and attacking psychiatry, even on live TV interviews. The media claimed the church had full control over his personal life. One of the most discussed stories, a casting call for his future wife. Allegedly, Scientologists handpicked young actresses who passed loyalty screenings. One of them, Nazanin Boniadi, revealed she was forced to break up with her boyfriend, change her appearance, go through intense training, and then was introduced to Tom. Later, he chose Katie Holmes, who reportedly fled the marriage, child in arms with legal support, to protect her daughter from church influence. John Travolta joined the church back in the 1970s. After his son's death in 2009, Scientology played a key role in his emotional recovery. At the same time, insiders say the church blocked psychiatric help, pushing for spiritual cleansing instead. Travolta stayed silent about inner workings, but his loyalty has never been questioned. She speaks out for women's rights but still supports an organization accused of suppressing women, domestic abuse, and harsh control over members' private lives. She avoids talking about it, but her ties to the church are confirmed. These examples show how Scientology turned Hollywood into its showroom, glittering, controlled, well-funded, and deeply resistant to criticism. Scientology is often presented as a path to personal freedom, but in reality, it's built on systematic control, psychological pressure, and complete dependence on the organization. What starts as spiritual growth very quickly turns into a trap that's incredibly hard to escape. And the deeper you go, the tighter the church closes its grip around your life. Every step a member takes is closely monitored. What you read, who you talk to, what you think about. If you start doubting the teachings, that's considered an ethical deviation, and you can be punished for it. If you criticize the leadership, you risk being labeled a suppressive person. That's basically a death sentence. From that moment on, people cut ties with you, even your closest friends and family. The church calls it disconnection. It's a tactic that's already destroyed thousands of families. Another major area of control is Scientology's total hostility toward psychiatry. The church believes psychiatrists are enemies of humanity. They're blamed for wars, genocide, drug addiction, even the Holocaust. Instead of treating depression, anxiety, or PTSD, the church pushes spiritual cleansing. People who actually need professional help are often convinced that auditing will fix everything. This has led to real tragedies, cases where people were pushed toward e-meter sessions instead of therapy or medication. And your personal story, what you share during auditing, is recorded. Your handlers know it all. If you ever decide to leave, the church can use this information against you. Former Scientologists have talked about blackmail, surveillance, smear campaigns. Your conscience becomes your weakness. For decades, Scientology kept itself behind a thick curtain of secrecy. But in the 2000s, things started to crack. And the first real break came from the inside. Actress Leah Remini. She spent over 30 years in Scientology, but in 2013, she left the church and did what others were too afraid to do. She spoke out publicly. In 2016, she launched the documentary series Scientology and the Aftermath, where she and other former members exposed how the church keeps people in fear, psychological pressure, financial dependence, isolation, blackmail. Each episode tells a new story. Someone who lost their family, someone who was followed by private investigators, someone who was intimidated for years. These stories are powerful. A mother who hasn't seen her son in over 10 years because she was declared a suppressive person, and he was forced to disconnect. A Sea Org member who was locked in a punishment unit for months because he questioned a leadership decision. People who lost everything after leaving the church, their homes, their reputations, their entire lives. Former members say Scientologists actively track those who've left, setting up cameras outside their homes, sending friendly letters, launching media smear campaigns. This is called fair game, an internal policy of the church which states that enemies can be punished by any means necessary. And then there's the legal story. Scientology spent decades fighting to be recognized as a religious organization, so it wouldn't have to pay taxes. In the US, it was only officially recognized as a church in 1993, after a massive, drawn-out legal battle. The church filed over 2,000 lawsuits against the IRS, organized protests, sent in anonymous reports, and used political allies to apply pressure. Eventually, they won. Since then, they've enjoyed tax benefits like any traditional religion. But the scandals haven't stopped. Scientology has been repeatedly accused of exploiting minors in Sea Org, where children sign a billion-year contract, covering up abuse, silencing victims who try to take legal action. In the 2000s and 20s, several high-profile cases in California involved sexual assault, where the church was named as an institution that protects abusers and punishes victims through silence. Even now, when there's more public information than ever before, the Church of Scientology tries to maintain the image of a spiritual corporation that helps people become better. But the deeper you dive into the stories of former followers, the more it starts to feel less like faith, and more like a cult with flawless PR and a dangerously polished power structure. Scientology survived into the 21st century, adapted, strengthened, and learned how to disguise itself better than any other modern cult. Despite exposés, lawsuits, and lost influence in some countries, it still stands strong, with shiny centers, new recruits, and an army of lawyers ready to crush anyone who gets in the way. Its power rests on three pillars: structure, celebrities, and money. The church is built like a perfectly tuned machine, where every cog works toward one goal: keeping the system stable. Hierarchy, secrecy, tight internal control, and a ruthless approach to critics, all of this prevents the church from collapsing from the inside. Influential allies are its weapon on the outside. When you're backed by world-famous actors, when you've got people in politics, entertainment, even the legal system, you're hard to touch. And if someone does try, get ready for lawsuits, media attacks, surveillance, and pressure. And most importantly, there's demand. Scientology doesn't survive just on structure. It survives because of people. Because no matter how much truth is exposed, no matter how many documentaries get made, there will always be those searching for meaning. People who are hurting, who've lost direction, who want to unlock their potential, become better, cleanse the past. Scientology plays this game masterfully. It offers the answers, shows the way, sells the illusion of control. In a world where belief is a product and spirituality comes in pretty packaging, Scientology swims like a fish in water. And that's why, despite all we know, it's still alive. And it's not going away anytime soon.